I'm Jason Epperson. This is RV Miles, and it's time for the latest in RV and camping news. Welcome back, everybody. We're so glad you're here. Before we dive in, this episode is sponsored by the folks at RV Life. The RV lifestyle is about community, and the RV community is at the heart of RV Life. RV Life recently celebrated the 1 millionth trip planned with RV Life Trip Wizard, their excellent trip planning tool for RVers, featuring all the trusted reviews, pictures, and tips from their RV Life Campground site. RV Life also features several blog sites and over 20 additional RVing forums to serve the RV community. All this experience and community feedback come together to help create a fantastic RV trip planner and mobile navigation tool collectively called RV Life Pro. RV Life has marked a milestone of over 3 billion miles traveled using RV Life Pro, counting both the planned RV trips and ad hoc navigation taken with the included RV Safe mobile app. Get 25% off RV Life Pro at the link in the description for this episode. Okay, first up, a big follow-up as promised on last week's big story that most motorhome sales will be effectively banned in just a few weeks in 6 states and several more states in the next year or two. If you haven't watched that video yet, I encourage you to. I'm not going to go into all the details of that here. I want to expand on it. I have a bit more information to share, and I wanted to answer a few of the most common questions from the well over 2,000 comments on that video. Long story short, though, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, enacted a ruling back in 2020 that led up to where we are today, where manufacturers in California must sell a certain percentage of their vehicles as zero-emission vehicles, a percentage that will increase over time. The first big wave of that begins in 2025, though nobody seems to know if it's actually on January 1st or some unspecified date. Big RV chassis manufacturers like Freightliner and Spartan have said they cannot meet those requirements and will no longer be able to supply their diesel motorhome chassis in California or the 5 other states that have signed on to follow CARB's rulings. Ford's gas motorhome chassis will be able to be sold since they have other vehicles under their belt that give them credits to be able to sell combustion engine chassis. Right now, the rule for 2025 is that 11% of manufacturers' sales have to be zero-emission vehicles, and that will go up. I said in the last story that I didn't feel like I had the full picture about what had happened. Apparently, it was just that the RV industry was expecting an exemption from this law, and they just didn't get one, and that's really the gist of it. They say they've been fighting this for well over a year. Others in the industry say they haven't been fighting hard enough. I don't know. But to clarify, this isn't just a ruling that affects big diesel pusher motorhomes. It can potentially affect all motorhomes over 8,500 pounds, which is virtually all motorhomes except Class B camper vans. To my knowledge, it will not affect manufacturers that make smaller batches of vehicles, under 500 or so, like Prevost. A lot of you asked how one state can affect the laws of 5 other states, or even more potentially. California is the only state in the nation that can set its own vehicle emissions rules. That comes from Section 177 of the Federal Clean Air Act that was passed back in 1970. States are generally prohibited from adopting vehicle emission standards, and that power is reserved for the federal government under the Clean Air Act. However, when the bill was passed, California had been dealing with a terrible smog problem that had been dating back to the 40s. Smog was way worse then, and California's air quality laws have a lot to do with the improvement. The Clean Air Act gives California the ability to set its own stricter vehicle emission standards than the rest of the United States through a provision that allows the state to apply for a waiver from the EPA due to compelling and extraordinary conditions, smog. If other states want to have stricter regulations, they have to be exactly the same as California's. So some states decide to sign on to match. They either have to follow the federal emission standards or they can sign on to California's stricter ones. Now, many of you thought in the comments that since President Trump has been reelected, he will put an end to this. It's possible, but it's tricky. The EPA waiver can be rescinded, but the Clean Air Act makes it difficult to do with some regulations around how it can be done. When the first Trump administration attempted to roll back California's standards, many major automakers chose to negotiate with the state instead to avoid the uncertainty. The state in 2020 finalized an agreement with BMW, Ford, Honda, Volkswagen, and more, which agreed to follow the state's standards through 2026, regardless of what the federal government did. So there's a lot of stuff to unravel here. The first Trump administration made rolling back California environmental standards a priority, a centerpiece really of its agenda, but they lost 83% of their court cases in attempts to do so. So there are going to be legal challenges ahead for sure. Obviously, the Trump administration, this is something that they plan to do, is try to rein in California emission standards. They are very anti-EV tax credits and mandates and all that sort of stuff. So this is going to be a situation that is going to be evolving quite a bit over the next few years. It's also now clear that you will be able to register a used motorhome in California. It must have 7,500 miles on it to be considered used. I do believe that is different in several of the other states, that they all have their own rules for what is considered a used vehicle. Related, in the time since I put that video out, CARB has voted to approve a proposal to tighten fuel standards, which will likely cause the cost of fuel in California to skyrocket even higher. The changes require fuels to meet higher standards for greenhouse gases. Independent estimates show this change could spike prices by another 65 cents a gallon. CARB's own study says it'll raise by 45 cents a gallon, and they say that their study is flawed and it probably will be more. So that 65-cent number might be a little bit more accurate. The current average price for a gallon of regular gasoline in California is $4.48. It's consistently the highest in the nation by a good amount. A Virginia family was hit with a surprise $576 toll charge on a 45-mile route that saved them just 20 minutes. The family took their RV on I-66 express lanes during peak rush hours, something I wouldn't recommend you do. They knew there'd be a toll. They figured the RV might add a little extra cost, maybe $10, $20. But when they looked at their toll bill, they were shocked to see $576 due. The 3-axle RV was indeed charged more due to its size, but the charge was also affected by dynamic pricing, where the toll varies depending on demand. Apparently, the toll operators take both the number of axles and the height of the vehicle into account, and then it's multiplied by a factor that has to do with the amount of vehicles on the road at a given time. Just avoid toll roads in your RV is probably the best thing to do if you can, unless you know exactly what the toll is going to be. General Motors is recalling nearly 500,000 diesel vehicles due to a transmission issue that can impact wheel function, said the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. According to the NHTSA recall notice released on Wednesday, a transmission valve prone to wearing down over time can cause the rear wheels of affected vehicles to lock up, increasing crash risk. 24 2020 through 2022 vehicle types are subject to the recall, including GMC and Chevrolet trucks and SUVs. Besides issuing the recall, GM has also stopped the delivery of the included vehicles. Campground chain KOA has released an economic impact report that found that this past year, campers increased their average daily spend by $28 per person, spending $156 per person per day on average on all their camping-related activities. The report also showed that glampers and families spent more. It's estimated that campers spend about $49 billion in local communities during their trips. 8 in 10 campers suggest that they plan to either increase or keep their camping trips consistent. Not only are more people experiencing the outdoors, but they're spending more days outside. The number of active camping households that camp 3 or more times annually has increased by 98% since 2014, according to the report. That said, according to another campground chain, visits to commercial campgrounds are down across the 78 parks in the Jellystone system. RV site revenues have fallen 17.1% over the past year. We just booked our 6-week spring trip, and just an idea, campground operators, you may have reached beyond the limits of what most of us are willing to pay for a campground. And RV sales continue to slide as well. There were 27,400 retail registrations recorded in September of 2024, according to the latest stats from Statistical Surveys, who compile such things. That's a 9% decline compared to September of 23. Year to date, there have been 289,000 or so retail registrations, which is a 10.2% decrease over last year. Class A and B motorhomes have borne the brunt of that loss, with Class A sales down 25.9% and Class B sales down 28.9%. That's it for this week's RV and camping news. If you'd like to support what we do and help us hire reporters and staff to expand our coverage, consider becoming a Mile Marker member. That's our paid support community. We're right now giving away 1 month free. Sign up for the monthly option and use code RVMiles at checkout, and you'll get a 1 month free trial, or you can click the link in the description below to join and receive immediate access to live streams, past Detour episodes, that's our bonus podcast, a private Facebook group, and more. Mile Marker members are what makes so much of what we do here possible, including videos like this one. So we thank them for their support. Thanks a lot for being here, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.